Jesus Christ. Do you have to do that every time? No. It's just that I was in the middle of... Where the hell have you been? I've been, sorta, remaking older videos of mine. Videos where I like the subject, but try to remake those videos with better points and better jokes. Then I dispose of the original videos. I hide them away in the deepest, darkest pits the delete button can take those absolute war crimes. Anyway! Not much is lost in the process, except for the pretentious ramblings of a madman, but as much as I love improving my garbage videos, I don't think Silent Hill 2 should be remade at all, because the crucial parts that are being remade about it are directly tied to what makes it special.
Today's show is all about sabotage. Webster's dictionary defines it as destroying or damaging something that somebody cares about, okay?
The remake is currently set to release later in October, but based on all the red flags I've seen, I can already tell that the final result won't be Silent Hill 2.
We want Silent Hill 2 to make the same strong impression today that the original game did 21 years ago, and certain things need to be modernized to have the same or similar effect. For example, that's why we went with the over-the-shoulder camera, so we can immerse players into the game world as much as possible.
This person doesn't know what the hell he's doing!
So basically you're saying the Silent Hill 2 remake is gonna be terrible. No, not exactly. Oh, okay, I got it. It's gonna be good? No, here, look. What I'm saying is, it'll play fine, probably. But it's just gonna be another fucking battle royale filled with microtransactions. No, listen. It's just gonna be another generic remake with nothing particularly special about it. Did you see how much better James looks, though? The Silent Hill 2 remake is currently being sold on the idea of, it's what you played before, but now it's prettier.
Why do I give a fuck?
This wouldn't normally be a problem to me, since I'm usually pretty apathetic towards remakes. I give The Last of Us remake a The Last of Us out of The Last of Us. This pursuit to go back and polish older games isn't completely worthless though. I get the appeal to experience a developer's imagination with a fresh coat of paint. The remade Gravemind scene in Halo 2 is the coolest fucking thing I've ever seen.
Now I shall talk, and you shall listen.
But still, that doesn't take away from the fact that when I saw this... the only thing I could think of was sacrilege. So before the shameless remake comes along only to be forgotten, I want to make an example out of what's been shown off. I want to fucking kick the shit out of the trailer gameplay, and most importantly, to highlight what it misses that makes the original so special, and why being ugly was actually cool the whole time. Who the fuck is gonna watch this? I probably won't. For those who haven't played it, Silent Hill 2 is about James Sunderland, a regular guy who mysteriously receives a letter from his deceased wife telling him to go to the town of Silent Hill 2.
Hey, that's the name of the show.
There's a lot of spooky stuff that goes on there, like walking. Silent Hill 2 is not one of my favorite games ever made. I don't like the constant backtracking. I don't like the puzzles that remind me how stupid I am. I'm just generally attracted to games that are more... loud, I guess. But all of this is fine, because while Silent Hill 2 may not be in the same league with the other greatest games ever made, it is one of the best horror games ever made. Silent Hill 2 isn't like other horror games, though. It's weird.
Ew! What the fuck?
The combat is, well, not exactly accessible for the casuals. But I watched the remake gameplay they showed off on YouTube and something was off. Well, I mean, everything was off. There's gonna be a fucking dodge button, which I will get to, but first, the camera. It's in the right position, or rather, it's in the wrong one. The reason for the forced perspective in the original wasn't just to make the player feel disoriented when controlling James. It was also an effective way at creating tension. The combat always had a level of suspense because of not being able to perfectly see your enemy the way you wanted. As all gamers know, there's nothing spookier than a camera angle that isn't over the shoulder. But with the camera in a more familiar and less jarring position, it becomes exactly that, a more comfortable experience that diminishes the horror. And the same can be said about the inclusion of a fucking dodge button. This might be a hard pill to swallow, viewer, okay? But Silent Hill 2 was actually not a rhythm-based action game. It was not about being able to parry Pyramid Head's dick. It was about resource management. If you didn't conserve your ammo and health items, the game punished you and naturally made encounters more intense. For the most part, the combat looks like this. It's slow and kinda disturbing, but with the focus being shifted to something that honestly looks more up my alley, something faster and more responsive, it loses a bit of the horror the original had going for it.
I guess I don't really care if it's dangerous or not.
The forced perspective and the resource-based combat are weird features that aren't really in fashion anymore, but are perfectly in line with what this genre demands. The lack of control is always an essential part of great horror. But like I said before, Silent Hill 2 isn't like other horror games. No, it's also kinda sad. This game has a creepy tone to it for sure. I mean, it's horror first and foremost, but under its surface lies only pain. The misery of this place is palpable. The town itself creates physical manifestations of what its visitors hate about themselves the most and revels in it. There's clear imagery of sexual violence, gluttony, and suicide. I won't spoil everything that happens because that's not really the point of this video, and you should honestly just go play it yourself, you godless, uncultured. What always defines and elevates the shocking imagery to me, though, is its surreal setting. The whole thing has this sorta Stephen King vibe to it. The ever-present fog, the seemingly never-ending staircase, the symbolic enemy designs. This stuff might come off as weird, surreal bullshit, but it's just so damn tragic that this town, it's meant for broken people. Every kind. Whether it has to do with you being ashamed of your overeating or something else, you belong here, in the only nightmare where you could possibly confront yourself. And while all of this is happening, it sorta looks like shit.
Who the fuck said that? Who's the slimy little communist shit twinkle-toed cocksucker down here who just...
Silent Hill 2 was a technical achievement when it released in 2001 for the PlayStation 2. It pushed the boundaries of what video game cutscenes could look like at a time when cutscene technology was still in its infancy.
Kermit the Frog here.
And it's even more impressive to know that the CGI director, Sato Takayoshi, hand-animated the facial movements by himself, in a cave.
With a box of scraps!
I personally love the aged graphics of Silent Hill 2. I love that all of it feels a little off, which totally fits the vibe of this world. Even the FMV cutscenes that'll occasionally play still contain small moments that give away their realism. What you have to understand is that even though the game is visually outdated nowadays, it was cutting edge 20 years ago. But the times have changed. We live in a different gaming era now. Gameplay needs to be more Adderall adjacent. Human pores that you'd never notice must be there. Programmers need to be chained to their desks so that they can never see their families ever again. But this game still holds something special within its imperfections. The look of Silent Hill 2 is outdated by modern standards, but still adds so much to its world. There is something unsettling about obvious imperfections. Bad graphics can be a window into something that's slightly disturbing. The blurred textures, lack of polygons, the stunted animations, all of it comes together to really flesh out this strange sense of unreality. It's a feeling I've never really felt anywhere else in gaming, but when I saw this...
After we got separated in that long hallway? Are you confusing me with someone else?
I felt nothing besides...
It is beautiful!
People are always advocating for games to look as lifelike as possible nowadays, and rightfully so. I spent $500 on the fucking mini fridge box. I expect it to render nipples in perfect clarity. But me being the absolute fucking loser that I am, I think there's something special about those older games that are rougher on the eye. They can offer a certain texture that you don't really feel anymore. There's a visceral reaction to something that looks like shit. Have you played Kane and Lynch 2: Dog Days? You probably haven't, since you're not as cool and underground as me. I haven't showered in 4 days. The plot follows the fun adventures of Kane and Lynch.
Let him go!
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
You don't need to play the first game in order to understand its sequel. All you really need to know is that these two dicks get involved with a hit job that goes wrong in Shanghai, and then spiral into a nightmare that gets worse and worse. Dog Days is a game that leaks resentment, only thirsty for the moment it has the chance to shit on you. Every scene is filled with hostility, every line is spoken with bitterness, every environment is covered with filth. Every time you have a moment to breathe, you're just... What the fuck? It's a game that isn't concerned with redemption or hope in the slightest. Kane and Lynch are terrible people who utterly blast their way through this world, and by the end of all of it, the death, the torture, the...
Put your fucking pants on.
They both escape, but you're left with this feeling that whatever chaos they've created, it'll just follow them wherever they go next. The game isn't that long, being a little over 4 hours, and the story within it really isn't all that complex, but it doesn't need to be, because the presentation is unmistakable. The sheer hatred of this game is bleeding through its filter. The constant disorientation, the blood smearing the camera, the attempted pixelation of gore and nudity, the J.J. Abrams lens flares, the absolutely deafening gunfights. Everything about this game is intentionally designed to unnerve the player. At times, it can feel almost unapproachable because of how nauseating it is. I've played plenty of over-the-shoulder cover shooters before, but I've never played any that harbored this much hostility towards the player. You could boil this game down to being an edgelord's wet dream, and you'd be right. Hell, I'm probably gonna be put on a watch list after admitting to playing this game. But I think that's why I love it so much. I love just how dedicated it is towards making you feel completely uncomfortable. It successfully achieves this feeling not just through its narrative, but by the mere look alone. Kane and Lynch 2 is able to completely sell what it's about. It hasn't been remade, and I highly doubt it'll ever be remade because, I mean, who the fuck wants to re-experience this again?
16 times the detail.
It couldn't be remade anyways, though. Not the right way, at least. Because an important part of what makes it special is how visually jarring it is. But take away all those annoying features, and then it's just Gears of War, but not good. Those annoying features I mentioned earlier, the disorientation, the deafening gunfights, the blood smearing the camera, are fundamentally tied to what Kane and Lynch 2 is about.
Look at the top of his head!
I don't know how to recommend this game. It's like recommending police body cam footage that goes horribly wrong.
I know you're trying to insult me, but I'll take that as a compliment.
Is this still a video about Silent Hill 2? Shut up. Silent Hill 2 presents a world that is profoundly dark while being rooted with surreal imagery, but it only works because of the limitations of its time. The combat is only as intense as it is because of the lack of control. Walking down those dark hallways and misty streets are only as creepy as they are because of how ugly they look. The visuals are just as much a part of Silent Hill 2's identity as its gameplay. It's an identity that I'm not particularly crazy about, but once the plastic surgery is done and the kinks are ironed out, that specific feeling this game used to evoke won't be there anymore. Nostalgia is inevitable. The industry's thirst for wanting to recapture the fire of classic games is a money-making whore that cannot slow down. This video doesn't exist to prove that old thing good and new thing bad, because, I'll be honest, the gameplay that Bloober Team has shown off on YouTube doesn't look terrible. It doesn't look like someone's about to rip me off with a broken mess. What I've seen looks fine. As far as generic experiments go, I'm sure the game will be a noticeable upgrade. It'll play smoother. The camera will be in a more comfortable position. Fuck it. You can dodge now for some reason. It's a remake, but it certainly isn't Silent Hill 2. The AAA coat of paint shows it all. It shows that in the process of making something prettier, the ugliness is lost. And wasn't that a part of the magic all along? There is no excellent beauty that hath not some strangeness in proportion.